Welcome, luxury enthusiasts, to the Luxury Travelers Podcast, hosted by Rodney George. The ultimate passport to opulent destinations, extravagant experiences, and unparalleled indulgence. Whether one is a seasoned jet setter or daydreaming of the next lavish getaway, the Luxury Travelers Podcast has it all covered. So buckle up and prepare for a journey into the lap of luxury. Now, your host.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is when you finally are getting around to watching this episode. I have a good friend of mine from here, right here in Naples, Florida, who's with us today. I have Tim Tetzlaff, who is the Director of Conservation for the Naples Zoo. And a lot of people are amazed that a small town like Naples could have a zoo. Not only is it a zoo, but it is a nationally accredited zoo. And so, Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tim has a long history with the zoo. Tim, why don't you share a little bit with us about how the zoo, the Naples Zoo, actually got started, evolved, and is what it is today?
Absolutely. So I'm very happy to say that I've been here for half the history of the Naples Zoo. It started in 1919 as a botanical garden. So we are a member of the American Public Gardens Association. We're an accredited arboretum, a member of Botanical Gardens Conservation International. So we have that foundation. And then in the 50s, it opened up as a typical Florida attraction that you'd find in the 50s with macaws and flamingos, that kind of thing. And then in 1969, my mother and father, known by their stage names of Jungle Larry and Safari Jane, back when people had stage names like that, introduced the wild animals, the lions, tigers, and species like that to the gardens. And so I've been here since 1969 and very grateful to be here. We've been a nonprofit for the last 20 years. I'm the only family member here. We've got a fantastic team. And more recently, we've been able to develop our conservation programs more significantly. And so even though my father raised me along with my mother in a conservation mindset, in fact, before I was even born, they had a program called the Vanishing Everglades, which was talking about conservation needs for the Everglades back in the 60s. So these days, we see over 400,000 guests a year at Naples Zoo, so we're happy to see a lot of folks here in the gardens, seeing everything from anteaters to zebras, as well as our impact specifically for some of the stuff we'll be talking about today across the globe. We have invested over $3.5 million in saving species in the wild, and since 2014. And that includes annually funding the full salaries of 27 field staff in 7 different countries, many of which are in Tanzania that we'll be interacting with on this safari.
And those people are funded by contributions to the Naples Zoo?
Yeah, so it's a
Wow.
combination of operational dollars as well as philanthropic support from our members and supporters.
I'll tell you, every time you talk about Jungle Larry's, I can still remember the first time I brought my kids to Naples back in 1986, driving down US 41, and here's this big billboard, and they're going, Daddy, we got to go to the Jungle Larry's. And so I did a little digging and found out it was what it was, and it became an annual trek when we would come down to our condo at Marco Island.
Fabulous.
So I wanted to talk a little bit today because our affiliation with the Naples Zoo, because of Teresa Perez in our office, has been ongoing for a number of years in assisting you guys with your African safari projects. And so, why is the Naples Zoo involved in safaris?
Great question, Rodney. As you mentioned, Teresa, our relationship goes back over 15 years now. We've been working together, and obviously she's wonderful to work with. You've got a wonderful team there, many of which she's worked with for years as well. And so the mission at the Naples Zoo is connecting people with nature, and there is practically no better way to do that for the people who have the means to do it than to see animals in nature and then be along with someone who can interpret that experience that connects it back to what's happening in the United States among conservation-oriented zoos. And then especially because of how we do our safaris, not just connecting them with the director of conservation, who's me, but also conservation professionals that work day to day in the wild.
Well, I know you have a lot of contacts around the globe, and I'm always amazed as to who you're able to pull out of the hat to join you on these journeys. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit, since we released it this week and we already have 2 or 3 bookings on this, who your special guest is for the May 2025 Tanzania, which is only a single departure and it's only for 12 folks. But tell them a little bit about who's accompanying you on that trip.
I am thrilled to say it's Dr. Lely Lichtenfeld. She is one of those people that's just astounding to me. What she has managed to do, in very simple terms, is increase the wildlife population in the area where she works, along with her team. There are more lions now in that area than when she began. And that's, a lot of people can say we've done a lot of good work, but you want to see the impact. And she really has developed that impact. So she is a graduate of Yale. She has her PhD. She has been a resident of Tanzania full-time for the last 24 years. She and her husband co-founded African People and Wildlife. She's one of the few women CEOs in East Africa, and has done a tremendous job of incorporating community into conservation. So it is the farthest cry away from I'm from the government and here to help and impose something on you. It is truly collaborative in every aspect. And so they've got well over 200 staff, and there are 3 people in the entire organization that were not born in Tanzania.
Wow.
And one of those is her husband, who has 4 generations going back in Africa. And so is also a phenomenal contact as well.
Isn't she a contributing writer to National Geographic?
So she's a National Geographic explorer. So that means she regularly attends those events in Washington, D.C. She's done TED Talks before, and has been recognized in Women of Impact, National Geographic special. So there's a lot of connections to National Geographic. She's not one of the contributors to the magazine itself, but National Geographic is certainly a very familiar world for her.
I know that our clients that went with you, was it last year or year before that I think it was last year she went with you as well, right?
Yes, we've co-hosted before, and based on that experience, I wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
Many safari companies put on wonderful safaris, and they have hosts that are great hosts. They know how to take care of people. She is an experienced host as well. I've been leading safaris for 15 years. I enjoy that aspect of safari. But imagine you're walking around Disney with one of the 24-year-olds who's learned all about the park and is giving you a tour as a VIP. It's a great experience. But then imagine if it's, one of the famous, Disney legends like Joe Rohde, one of the Imagineers.
Right.
And he's taking you around Disney.
Yeah.
It's a different experience.
A whole new level.
Exactly.
New level. Well, when it comes to safaris, there's a number of incredible providers out there. What makes, other than people like yourself and Dr. Lichtenfeld company, what makes these safaris through the Naples Zoo so special?
And again, there are other wonderful companies out there doing safaris, and I've been on a number of those safaris. The distinction that we're able to do that those multiple departures simply can't do is things like meeting with the rhino rangers at Ngorongoro Conservation Area, and being escorted off-road by those rangers to see the rhinos up close. Now, that's an experience they just can't offer, but we have that because Naples Zoo has a long-standing relationship with Ngorongoro Conservation Area Authority. We're one of 2 zoos in the world that actually has a memorandum of understanding with them, We've been supporting their efforts for a number of years now. In fact, a few months ago, we just had a wonderful ceremony presenting 2 Toyota Land Cruisers to the Rangers, essentially doubling the fleet available to the Rangers to monitor the rhinos. And actually, the wire transfer just went out yesterday. We are rebuilding their ranger observation outposts on the crater walls that monitor those rhinos day and night. And so there's a variety of things that we do with them. We're well-known faces to them. I'm on WhatsApp with the rhino coordinator for Ngorongoro. We do a lot of things together. So when we show up, it's a great time. They're friends, they're colleagues, and we can welcome our travelers into that experience to offer them things that, these rangers and the leadership of Ngorongoro have other things to do on a regular basis. So they can't roll out that red carpet, 2-3 times a month for a multiple departure safari. And the same thing, by being in the company of Lely, she can take us outside Serengeti National Park and show us some of the amazing conservation work going on by African people and wildlife, take us to the Women's Enterprise Center, see how they are changing the lives of women and communities there. And so there's just things that are simply not possible on a multiple departure itinerary, and even that would not be possible on a custom booking if you just wanted to go with yourself or your family, because the connections are just, again, not possible to do this multiple times without being with people that have the connections.
A few steps up from the ordinary would be where you would position this, just because of the close relationship that you have with those people on the ground and people like Dr. Lichtenfeld that are accompanying you. So it's like, I would call it a bragging rights safari, that when you get back, you have the ability to brag about where you went, what you saw, who you traveled with, and the all-in experience.
Yeah. And then the other aspect is, because we build these safaris, we custom craft this boutique safari, and they can only get it through your agency. You can't go to any other agency in the country and say, I want to go on that Naples Zoo safari. It's got a Naples base. So the wonderful part about it is you're traveling with fellow Neapolitans. So I know on some other departures, I've talked to some folks who have been on other trips, and you're traveling with 2 weeks for some people, and you get to find some new friends. And then, the safari ends, or the trip to Italy ends, or what have you. And it's just kind of like, oh, you live in Texas or Pennsylvania or Iowa or Oregon. It's just like, well, have a nice life.
Have a great life. Yeah.
Yeah. But we've got people from safaris 10, 12, 15 years ago that still get together.
Oh, we had people stop in our office earlier this morning that have been on your safari, and they were talking about some friends of theirs that went with them. And I mean, it's just they build lasting relationships traveling together, because they seem to have that common denominator of being based in Naples, at least for a portion of the year anyway.
Yeah. And then some of the other aspects of what makes it fun for me, which then passes on to the traveler, is because we're not a larger company that has existing relationships with certain properties that have expectations. If you're using this safari, you're going to show up at our particular property. And so what I like is working with the people on the ground, with safari professionals that does our coordination here. And I've been in that landscape, like I said, myself for years. And so I know a lot of these properties very well, and gives us the chance to custom build where's the place that has the great service, the wonderful views, that's in a good location for everything we want to do, and has the accommodations and luxury you expect. And if somebody in that same chain has another property that doesn't match that, we're not beholden. We don't have to go to that one. So we can pick the exact property that we want to go to, and to offer that experience. And so that's another wonderful thing that I like, to be able to custom craft each particular property along the way.
Well, I'm going to send this out to everybody that clicks in and watches this. But also, we got about 10 minutes left. You want to run through this just a little bit to tell them what to expect as far as the dates and times and places you're going?
Absolutely. So we depart May 20. The safari starts May 26th, 2025, runs through June 7th. Certainly encourage people to show up a day or two early, get over that jet lag. We've got amazing property in Arusha that is just wonderfully relaxing. Ngari Cerro Mountain Lodge, and lovely environment. You'll find horses grazing in the grass outside your room. You've got a beautiful lake. Service is wonderful, and it's an old coffee plantation, farmhouse environment. So it's a wonderful place just to get into Africa, relax, spend an extra day, and then if you do come in a day early, we'll take a walking safari out in Arusha National Park to Luluzia Waterfall, but we usually see some Cape buffalo or giraffe along the way, and then take a game drive to the rest of the park. Then from Arusha, which is the home base, you'll fly into Kilimanjaro International Airport. By the way, another thing we make sure we do on all our safaris is you land on these big Trip 7 airplanes with 300 of your closest friends, and of course everybody lines up. We arrange for the VIP welcome. Yes. So those folks that I know very well, they'll usually either be Nick, Nostra, or Miriam, who meets you at the airport. Has a logo they hold up, so you just walk over there. They make sure you are who you are, and then they take you outside of that area entirely. We've got a lovely separate building, and we do the same experience on the way out. So you don't have to line up with everybody else and try to figure out the paperwork with a lot of the bizarre questions that sometimes you're scratching your head. How do I answer? So and anybody, all that hassle out.
And anybody that's ever been to Africa knows exactly what you're talking about, because it is mass confusion if you don't have somebody there to hold your hand.
Oh yeah, and we go get your bag for you, everything. You just sit on a nice leather couch, process in a single office with the customs agent, and we're all good to go on our way. So it's a wonderful way to enter and exit the country. So once we are through Arusha, it's typically about a half-day drive to take you up to Tarangire National Park. But instead of that, we're going to go over to the Kilimanjaro Wildlife Estate, to the airstrip there, jump on a plane for about a 20-minute flight to take you over, and you'll be right in the heart of Tarangire National Park. So as soon as you land, you're in the park, we're on a game drive. And so we've got a wonderful morning as we game drive over to Lamala's Mpingo Ridge, which is a phenomenal tent camp set up, as you might guess, on a ridge. So beautiful views, veranda that you step out onto. They set it up with a day bed. It's even got a bathtub out there if you want to take a soak in the evening. So just wonderful property and gorgeous views. That's also the area where Lely does the majority of her work. And so the next day she'll take us out to see some of that work, which is, again, a very personal experience. It's very impactful. And then from there, while we're in Tarangire, you also have a chance for another walking safari. So we'll get all of that squared away. So you get the best of what you want to do on safari, along with the other superlatives we have. From there, we leave Tarangire, drive up the Gregory Rift up into the Ngorongoro Highlands. The Great Rift Valley is where we've been, and we'll move up into the highlands to Ngorongoro Crater, a World Heritage Site, largest unbroken, unflooded caldera on planet Earth. It's 10 by 12 miles across. It's this hidden Eden inside this 2,000-foot deep crater. And so we've got a brand new property. The Malia brand did a full rework and opened up a new lodge just a couple years ago. And when you drive up, the entrance experience is phenomenal. But then as you come into the building itself and you see all these giant glass windows looking down in the crater, it is just jaw-dropping. So, and the service there is phenomenal. It's great place to get spa service, as you can do at the other properties as well. And so we've got 3 nights there. So you can enjoy all the wonders of those spas and just the amenities of being around there. So we wanted to make sure on this itinerary you have enough of the time away from game drives to really enjoy these wonderful properties you're at. So while we're there, you'll have the full day down in the crater. We've got, instead of a box lunch around the lake and the washroom area that everybody else goes to, we've got a private area that's set up. They've got a hot grill going. They'll have their wonderful lobster that Malia is well known for. So it's a lunch you'll never forget. And then we'll see some Maasai communities while we're around the Ngorongoro area as well. So you'll have that experience. That's a very powerful cultural experience to meet the Maasai, see them living traditionally. And then also while we're there, as I mentioned earlier, we'll meet up with the rangers, and they'll take us off road the next morning to go see some of those rhinos up close. It's the critically endangered black rhinos. And even from the evening we arrive there, you'll start seeing some of these folks show up, and Lely and I will be chatting with them, and because at this point they're old friends, and so we'll introduce you while you're at the bar or what have you, so you can get to know these folks. From there, we leave the highlands and drive down into the world famous Serengeti National Park. Again, it's a very popular area, but we avoid those crowds because we go through the extra work of getting the permit to go into eastern Serengeti, which is fantastic, big cat country. They've got the beautiful kopjes, these granite outcroppings, wonderful place to see lions. It's also gazelle central, so wonderful place to look for cheetah as well. So the big five that everybody looks for, that's on this safari. And the landscape itself, I tell people if they're planning their one trip to Africa, first of all, it probably won't be your one trip to Africa. It's just so exciting you want to go back. But when you close your eyes and think about the African landscape, it is this part of Africa. The acacia trees, silhouetted against the sunset. It's the stuff that we've seen in the movies for years. This is iconic Africa. So up there, we'll be at Namiri Plains Lodge, an incredible tent camp run by the Asilia brand, which is top notch. And again, just amazing to have your tent out there on the Serengeti. Again, beautiful deck with a tub out there. You want to take a soak with a view like you can't imagine. That's what they offer there. And so we'll have a couple nights there. And then from that point, we wind up to give you 3 nights of total luxury out of 4 seasons. Yes, there is a 4 seasons in the Serengeti.
In the middle of nowhere.
Or the middle of everywhere.
Everywhere.
Depends on your perspective, Rodney.
Yeah.
And so it is, we've got the second story rooms, the horizon rooms, which are a nice upgrade so people can get a great view of the plains. This is the place that has an infinity pool that looks out over a water hole where you see zebras, you see elephant. So it's a spectacular property. Beautiful common areas. There's a Discovery Center museum. So there's a lot of things to do around the property itself. And of course, we're right there on the northern end of the central Serengeti. So we can go down into the Serenera River area looking for the cats, over to the Ratima Hippo Pool. We've got a lot of areas to explore in there that make it all just a fabulous place to spend 3 nights.
The last time I was at the Four Seasons, my phone vibrated at 6 a.m. And my wife says, "Aren't you going to see who that is?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, it's probably one of the group wanting some information." I said, "No, it's the St. Louis Blues score. And the Blues were in Boston playing Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. And I had minimal confidence, if any, that the Blues would win. And finally she says, "Pick up your phone. I'm dying to know." And I picked it up, and the Blues had beaten the Bruins in Boston for Game 7. And so we got everybody together on the driveway in front of the hotel, and the hotel manager videoed us singing our St. Louis Blues song. That's my memory of the Four Seasons in the Serengeti. By the way, you talk about tent camps, and for people who haven't been to Africa yet, they may have checked out when you said tent camps. Tell them a little bit about these tents, and we'll throw some pictures on here as well.
Absolutely, yeah. For if you were ever in the Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts as a kid, just throw those ideas right away. These things are better appointed than a lot of people's homes. So Yeah, you've got a full ensuite in this tent. You've got, depending on your arrangement, either a twin bed or a king bed. Uh, Beautiful, comfortable space. You've got everything you need inside that tent, and so it is luxury under canvas. And the part I love, which is why I make sure to include a couple tent camps on every safari, is that is authentic Africa. When you're going to sleep, listening to the animals, you hear lions in the morning when you're early morning hours around dawn if we're not already out, and hyenas at night. So you hear that whoop. It's just such a primal experience.
And the
But you're
rhinos, if there's any water nearby, the rhinos and their unique sound that they make.
The hippos, you mean? Yes.
I mean the hippos.
Yeah, that grunting. I've had them
Yeah.
outside my tent. You hear them pulling the grass. So yeah, there's so many experiences that are just so critical that you can only get in a tent camp. But you want to go to really nice tent camps, and so that's what we've lined up, which are our top of the line tent camps. And of course, the food along the way, because a lot of people are wondering about that.
Oh.
You're not eating the wild game there. You're having all the traditional foods we're used to eating here. But I think the simplest way to describe the food is once upon a time they had cooks, now they have chefs. And so, and it's very clean cooking, very clean eating. People are surprised. It's like, I'm eating a lot because it's so good, but it's healthy cooking. It's great food. And especially you got wonderful vegetables, the fruits that they grow around Arusha. It's volcanic soil. So the food itself is an experience. And if you're a coffee drinker, some of the best coffee in the world comes from East Africa. So you're going to get it right from the place it was grown.
Well, I'm an early riser, and I love getting up early and finding the campfire and the coffee and just sitting around and talking to whoever else is an early riser and enjoying, because you're right. It's coffee like you're not going to get anywhere else.
Oh, it's phenomenal. And so some of those little added touches along the way, we've got that bush lunch that I mentioned, where they've got the grill going down in Ngorongoro. We have a bush dinner lined up, so you'll be out in the wild. Again, just a wonderful catered meal, just experiences that just make it really special, as well as the sundowners, where you gather to watch that sun drop down around 6 o'clock every night and have your gin and tonic or your favorite wine. And it's just a lovely way to say good evening to the day before you head into dinner. So when we finish at the Four Seasons, again, we've taken a while to drive there on our safari, but we have short drive to the Serenera airport, the airstrip there, and it takes about an hour, and we'll be back in Arusha. And so if people have heard of Tanzania and they enjoy jewelry, they've heard of Tanzanite, because this gemstone is only found in Tanzania. And so we actually go to the Cultural Heritage Center
Yes,
to
I've
do
been
some
there.
amazing shopping.
Yeah.
If you're looking for memories of Tanzania and some beautiful jewelry to take home, this is the place. I've been taking people there, like I said, for many, many years. And Tanzanite, if you want something that's, a small little pendant for, $250, $500, you can get that. If you want something to really get people to have their jaw drop and you want a $50,000 piece of jewelry, they have that as well.
They do.
And they have over a dozen jewelers there on site that can make modifications while we're there. And so they've got the ability to make sure you've got exactly what you'd like to go home with, along with carvings, beaded work, tapestries, and they're right next to this incredible art museum. And a cultural heritage, it's fixed price and it's a good price. So it's very easy shopping. Next door at the museum, they have incredible artwork, and you can negotiate on prices there and arrange for it to be shipped home if you get something that can't quite fit in your carry-on.
Well, I'm envious of your life, my friend, because it's like you said earlier, if you've been to Africa for the first time, it won't be the only time, most likely, because I remember I was not excited about going the first time. And after I got there, I couldn't wait for the next one and the next one. So, and to be able to travel in the style that you're traveling in and with the people that you're I'm traveling with, I am in fact envious. But we appreciate you being on the show today. This is just a ton of great information. For those of you who've not been to Africa and been sitting there on the fence going, we probably should go there someday. You should have already been there, but since you haven't, you definitely need to get there. And I can tell you this will be an experience that you'll cherish forever.
I cherish each trip myself, and everyone is different, and that's the joy of it. Every morning you wake up, there's something different going on, and so look forward to having folks come. I believe we're about half sold out on this trip already, so it's a good time to call you good folks over there.
Yeah, it is. And like I always say when I close up the show, as my good friend Philip Randall always said, enjoy yourself. It's later than you think.
Very true.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Take care.
Thanks, Rodney.
See you soon.
Thanks for joining us on the Luxury Travelers Podcast. For more information, head on over to luxurytravelerspodcast.com to connect with our team or leave us a message. Until next time, safe travels and savor the extraordinary.